have been silent witnesses of evil deeds. We have been drenched by many storms. We have learned the art of equivocation and pretense. Experience has made us suspicious of others and kept us from being truthful and open. Are we still of any use? Dietrich Bonhoffer.
Keinem etwas zu Leide tun und von keinem ein Leid erdulden.
I think the most important thing that my uncle did was to realize from the start how evil Nazism was, then I think how brave it was of this small group of people to think that they could fight together with other companions this monstrous machine, and that they were prepared to give their lives to do this.
You can almost sense that eventually he is going to somehow do something to put a spoke in the wheel of the Third Reich.
He could have such a very deep faith in God, even in the midst of incredible darkness.
He was so clever and he knew so well theology, and he knew all the points in which I was a weak man. I liked chocolate and he would bring me chocolate. He was my best friend.
Dietrich Bonhoffer was born in Breslau, Germany, February 1906, 10 minutes before his twin sister, Sabina. He was the sixth of 8 children and the youngest boy. His father, Karl Bonhoeffer, was a renowned psychiatrist and professor at the University of Berlin. His mother, Paula von Hase, came from a prominent family. Her grandfather was a chaplain of the Prussian court until he chastised the emperor for his attitude towards the poor and was dismissed. The Bonhoeffer home was in Grunewald, a privileged district on the outskirts of Berlin.
When the World War I broke out in 1914, the German churches unanimously supported the war effort. They were fully convinced by the propaganda that this war had been imposed on Germany by her encircling enemies out of a sense of envy, who wanted to stop the German developments and German cultural and spiritual and political expansion. They automatically became enthusiastic believers that indeed God was on their side.
Dietrich's older brother Walter volunteered for the front. He was 18. On the night before Walter's departure, the Bonhoeffer family gathered to say goodbye. Dietrich's twin sister remembered the evening.
Dietrich had, on his own initiative, practiced the song, "Now at last we say Godspeed on your journey." And in the evening before Walter left, he played it for him. The next day we saw Walter off at the station. When the train started moving, my mother ran alongside, calling out to Walter, "It's only space that separates us." and for a long time those words moved us deeply. A fortnight later, Walter was killed.
It was a time, Bonhoeffer wrote, when death stood before the door of almost every house and called for entrance.
The millions of men returned from the war totally disillusioned and regarding the religious establishment as a bunch of hypocrites. The churches suffered a tremendous loss of credibility and therefore of support.
I think the death of Walter certainly had part of an influence on him to enter the ministry and to study theology, where he would deal directly with the reality of death. It gave him a passion when he preached against war and when he became a known advocate of the pacifist solution to the problems of the world.
World War I left Germany and much of Europe in ruins. For the Allies, the peace treaty was designed to assure that Germany would never again bring the world to war. For many Germans, the terms were a national humiliation. In the years that followed, the monarchy was gone, replaced by a fragile democracy, and Germany became a nation of contrasts and change. In Berlin, professors, lawyers, and doctors often gathered around the Bonhoeffer table for debates about politics. Karl Bonhoeffer was an ardent supporter of the new Weimar government. The Bonhoeffer family held deep political convictions, but it was not very religious. So when Dietrich announced his plans to study theology, the family reacted with some shock.
The Bonhoeffer family is a very conservative, used to be a very conservative family, but conservative in the best way, you know, in the sense of being open for everything new, but never lose the roots where you're coming from, you know, and never lose the values you're coming from.
What you need to understand, I think, about Bonhoeffer in terms of the church was that his experience of the church as he grew up here in Germany during the Weimar period wasn't a very positive one. I mean, the family seldom went to church. The Bonhoeffers weren't great churchgoers. And even Bonhoeffer himself, even after he had decided to be a theologian, a pastor, didn't often go to church. And the reason was that, well, the church, well, yeah, it's important, I suppose, but, you know, you're an individual Christian and so forth, and the church is a society of people who belong together and perhaps worship from time to time. No sense of real fundamental community in which you discover who you really are in your relationship with other people and discover that that's the reality of Christ existing in the world today.